Hello and g'day. Welcome to another one of my Aussie snack food videos. And today I'm looking at the great Aussie spread called Vegemite. Now, I've actually had a number of requests for Vegemite over the last few months, and I'm not actually sure why I haven't done a Vegemite video before now, but anyway, it's better late than never. Now, one thing I was going to say was, yes, thanks to all the people that commented last time when I did a less talking, more eating video, and the bulk of the comments were that I should continue on doing a more talking and less eating video. So yeah, thank you for all those comments. It was there was a stack, so that was great. So this time, yes, I'm going to talk about Vegemite, and I will sample taste some Vegemite. So this is actually this is probably the largest jar you can get. It's 560 grams, which is well over a pound in the old Imperial. 560 grams metric, and I don't think I've started this yet because I've still got a jar in the cupboard that's almost finished. So this one is, oh no, I have started it. Yep, there's a little bit scraped out of that one. So I'll carefully put the lid back on. I think I've got that cross-threaded now, so I'll take it off and try again. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. So, Vegemite, B vitamins for vitality, proudly made in Australia since 1923. Start happy with Vegemite. So it's got a lot of B vitamins. B1, essential for brain function. B2, supports your nervous system. B3, essential for energy release. And folate helps fight fatigue. And there's a website there, www.vegemite.com.au for Australia, and that's a / recipes, or is it a backslash? I always get those two confused. I'm pretty sure that's a backslash actually. Recipes, and it's made in Australia from at least 95% Australian ingredients. And you may not be able to read there, but it's made by Bega Cheese Limited. And their address is 1 Vegemite Way, Port Melbourne, Victoria 3207, Australia. That's the postcode 3207, Australia. And yeah, and there's the all the list of ingredients. What I actually find is amazing is the salt content, or the sodium content per 100 grams is actually 3,300 milligrams per 100 grams, which is an incredible amount of salt. I know food that has, like 300 grams, 300 milligrams per 100 grams of salt, and that's sort of considered high. So this is sort of like 10 times as much. So it's a huge amount of salt. The ingredients: yeast extract, barley and wheat, salt, mineral salt, malt extract from barley, flavours: niacin, thionin, riboflavin and folate. And then contains barley and wheat. That's if you're a allergen, and it's suitable for vegetarians. So that's Vegemite. So what I'm going to do today is I've got 2 slices of bread. So I'm going to make a Vegemite sandwich. I've got 2 pieces of fresh white bread. I've got some Sunnyvale original margarine, and I probably prefer butter, but the margarine just spreads a lot easier, so I often have margarine, and I've got I'm using a plastic knife because last time I used stainless steel knife, and it made a lot of noise when I was cutting, and it was sort of reflecting different things, so I think it's better if I just use this is quite a solid plastic knife. So yeah. This was I'm not sure about today, but when I was a kid, you'd go to school with a Vegemite sandwich in your bag for your lunch, and that was that was a pretty good lunch. Well, probably not really a pretty good lunch, but it was sort of a common lunch, I suppose. So I just need to put on plenty of margarine on both sides of the bread, and when I made the fairy bread videos, people commented that I should have put the margarine right up into the corners. That's a nice sort of a spread, not too much, just a nice light covering of margarine on the bread, and then I'll carefully open up the Vegemite tub jar. I'll put the lid to one side, and the key with Vegemite is don't put too much on. I think, but I'm not sure. When people first try Vegemite, they sort of put it on like jam, big sort of chunks on like jam. And and it's it's a strong taste. So you've just got to sort of smear it on like that. Just a little bit of Vegemite, and that's probably, or maybe a little bit more. Put the jar there so you can see me carefully scraping the Vegemite off, and that's a nice amount actually. That's a nice amount of Vegemite. and then fold over the one on the other, so it's margarine on two sides, but Vegemite on one side, and just a thin coating like that, and then cut your bread down like that. When I used the stainless steel knife in the fairy bread video, it did make a bit of a scratching sound on the plate, so this is actually really good actually. There's no real noise at all, or there's no screeching noise anyway. Okay, oh well, and there we go. That is a beautiful Vegemite sandwich. So I better have a bite of that. Yeah, it's a nice sort of, with that sort of a thin smearing. It's a nice sort of salty taste, but not too salty. I'm trying to think what it tastes like, but it probably tastes like nothing I can think of. Another bite. It's a nice soft bread too, fresh, soft bread. It's really nice. I'll have another bite. And if you're a typical kid and you leave the crust behind, or you may eat that crust as well. Yeah, that's really nice. So, now this is definitely not an eating video, so I'm going to have a quick drink of water. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Vegemite. I'll put the lid on that jar. Excellent. I love the colours, that sort of red and yellow goes well together. And what I'll do is that's a good positioning, I think. The jar and the Vegemite sandwiches. Maybe I should put them up like that, just so you can see the little bit of Vegemite in between. Okay, so now the little bit of information about Vegemite. So it was actually developed by a man called Cyril Callister in Melbourne, Australia in 1922, and he made it from leftover brewer's yeast. So I suppose it's sort of I suppose that means it's left over from the brewing process where they're making beer, but I'm not really sure whether that's right or not, but I suppose it is. And sales were slow initially until probably the 1930s. First started being made commercially in 1923, invented in 1922, and sales started to take off in the late 1930s, and by the 1940s it was used in 9 out of 10 Aussie homes was our Vegemite. So today Vegemite's produced at the Bega Cheese's Port Melbourne factory, which is that in one One Vegemite Way, Port Melbourne. That's actually quite close to inner city Melbourne. And they make 22 million jars per year of Vegemite. And if you think there's 25 million people in Australia, so it's almost 1 jar per person of Vegemite. At one point, it was obviously initially Australian owned. It was bought by Mondelez International, which is craft foods. And then in January 2017, it was bought back by Bega Cheese, which is B-E-G-A, Bega Cheese, which is a town in Australia on the coast, or close to the coast, where they have a lot of dairy farms around it. And yeah, they bought back Vegemite in January 2017. So yeah, so it's usually it's been a one-way sort of street with all those other things I've shown you, that they get bought by overseas companies, and that's the end of the Australian ownership. But in this case, it was sold overseas and then bought back by Australian company called Bega Cheese Limited. So you must be able to buy shares on that one on the stock market. Yeah, so apart from Vegemite, there's other similar things that are sold in Australia. There's Promite, there's Marmite, Mighty Mite, Aussie Mite, and they're very sort of similar. It's a black salty spread, some are more sort of sweet than others. So yeah, just different recipes, but basically the same sort of result. There's also British Marmite, New Zealand Marmite. There's German. There's a German one too called Vitamar, and Swiss Sanovis has a brand as well. So Australia makes them. There's British, New Zealand, German, and Swiss have a different version of Vegemite. So Vegemite is salty, bitter, malty, and rich in glutamites, and it's suitable for vegans, vegetarians, vegans, and it's kosher, and also halal certified. I think it might say there. Oh, there we go. Halal's authority, and is that K might be the kosher symbol in Australia, and that's AFIC for the halal authority. Yeah, that's interesting. So other great things to include on your sandwiches with Vegemite can be cheese, Vegemited cheese. I remember having that as a kid, and yeah, I don't know that I really liked it that much. You know, by the time you get to lunchtime at school, the cheese would be all sort of warm and stuff, so it wasn't really quite that nice. Vegemite and lettuce. I remember having that as a kid as well. It wasn't really my favourite. But I've also seen Vegemite and avocado, and Vegemite and tomato, which would be nice as well. But yeah, so that's you can have it by yourself, or just put on a sandwich by itself, or you can include it with other additives. So that's Vegemite. Yeah, not sure why I haven't done it before. And one thing I haven't done either is I've just done sweet treats, sugary sweet treats. I haven't really done any savouries. This is probably pretty sure it's the first savoury one that I've done. So Yeah, I'm not sure why that is. Because I actually quite like. I actually quite like savoury things. But anyway, so that's Vegemite. Made in Australia since 1923. Took off after World War II, and B1 essential for brain function. B2 supports your nervous system. B3 essential for energy release, and folate helps fight fatigue. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to try Vegemite, then I'd recommend it, but be careful you don't take a big sort of a spoonful of it. Just a thin spread is all that you need on your sandwiches to enjoy the taste and not overload your taste buds. So I'm going to sign off now and say I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it relaxing. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now. And before I go, I'll just have one more of these Vegemite sandwiches.